For some of your game systems, you'll have that one game, the game that made you want the console in the first place. Now in my case, that game for the Nintendo 64 was Pokemon Stadium. When I first saw the previews in Nintendo Official Magazine, and I read that I could have Pokemon that I had raised in the 8-bit games rendered in 3D, I knew I needed this game in my life. I woke up early every morning, delivering newspapers, saved my money, and bought a Nintendo 64 just for this game. The first console I bought with my own money. When I first turned it on, I was greeted with an amazing opening sequence featuring a great remaster of the red and blue opening theme. There's a lot of familiar music from the 8-bit games, remastered. Additionally, the fight announcer is Pokemon anime veteran Ted Lewis.
And there goes the battle!
The graphics are also good as far as the Nintendo 64 goes. The 3D Pokemon look great, except Venusaur. He looks like he hit the vodka a bit too hard last night. Also, the special attacks look so much more destructive in 3D. The main bulk of the game is the Stadium mode, which features 4 tournaments requiring a Pokemon at different levels. There's the main tournament for level 50 Pokemon, a tournament for level 15 to 20, a tournament just for unevolved Pokemon, and the Anything Goes level 100 Prime Cup. This gives incentive to raise different teams to tackle the different tournaments.
Come to think of it, this was basically Red, Blue and Yellow's expansion pass, before downloadable content was even invented.
You can also use the Game Boy Tower to play the Game Boy games on your television. It makes me wonder why Nintendo didn't release a Super Game Boy 64 so that you could play all your Game Boy games on screen. Playing Red, Blue and Yellow on Pokemon Stadium makes it much easier to get your Pokemon ready to use in the Stadium tournaments. You can also make use of Professor Oak's lab to sort your Pokemon into boxes for easier organisation, or to keep them safe while you erase your save file so you can start a new playthrough. Now, I had recently started a new playthrough with Red version, so I'll be taking on Pokécup first. Unfortunately, I only have 4 Pokemon that meet the level requirements: Jolteon, Tauros, Alakazam, and Zapdos. But considering how good these Pokemon are, that's probably all I'll need. I remember back when I used to think that Raichu and the starters could handle anything, but thankfully we live in a more enlightened age, where channels like Fault Swipe Gaming exist, so now I can build my teams around the best of the G1 metagame. I battled my way through all 4 tiers of Pokécup and breezed through. Quite easily, I must say. After I conquered Pokécup, I received a fabulous prize, the Doduo Game Boy. This upgrade to the Game Boy Tower will now let me play the Game Boy games at double speed. So going back to the game, I played until I was ready for Prime Cup, the level 100 challenge. Tauros and Zapdos remain on the team, with the new additions of Mewtwo and Starmie. Between Mewtwo's raw power and Starmie's versatility and Tauros' brute strength, we steamroll pretty much everyone in our path, including the final opponent and his Mew.
I may have been cloned from your DNA, but now I will prove that Mewtwo is better than the original, superior to Mew.
After a tense battle, due to Stadium's obsession with giving everyone Thunder Wave, I take out his last Pokemon, and the Prime Cup Master Ball trophy is mine. What's also mine is the Dodrio Game Boy. So if you thought playing Red, Blue and Yellow at double speed was too slow, you can now play at ludicrous speed!
My brains are going into my feet!
Now you can beat the Elite Four faster to make more money to buy stat boosting items, also known as Celadon drugs. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the beauty of Pokemon Stadium. Well, actually, this character is the beauty of Pokemon Stadium. But what I was saying is, like a Shelder clamping onto a Slowpoke's tail, playing Pokemon Stadium with the Game Boy games is mutually beneficial.
Doing well in Stadium unlocks features that will help you with the Game Boy games, which helps you to raise more powerful Pokemon which can help you in Stadium, and that's what makes it such an addictive gameplay loop. It's also why the games haven't been very well received for the Switch's online program. Playing Pokemon Stadium without Red, Blue and Yellow is basically a Bloody Mary without any tomato juice. Or actual vodka. Someone drank it all last night!
So now that I can play at quadruple speed, it was time to start preparing teams for the other 2 cups, starting with Pika Cup for Pokemon between level 15 and 20. Now, a simple tip for this tournament: Gyarados and Arcanine with Dragon Rage can basically wipe the floor with most of the opposition. Also, I had a level 20 Alakazam destroying everything in his path as a testament to just how broken the Psychic type was in the old days. Or as a testament to how stupid some of the computer opponents are. Once Pika Cup was dealt with, it's now time to move on to Petite Cup. For those of you who don't speak French, the language they speak in the Kalos region, where no blue cheese sandwich is complete without a healthy dose of Grapepon, Petite means little, as this is a tournament for unevolved Pokemon. For this one, I had Abra leading the charge, backed up by a Pikachu named after a popular Belgian beer. I got the spelling wrong, of course, like people who pronounce Forster's Lager as Foster's. Ghastly was also a major player in this tournament, with its great stats and its versatile move pool. Wow, I never noticed how big he is before. His nickname comes partly from being a cloud of gas, but also after Sir Toby Belch from Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, and like his namesake in Twelfth Night, Belch surprisingly ended up being the MVP of my team. He swept the final opponent without getting a scratch. Before we storm the Gym Leader Castle, I need to talk about the mini-games. Some of them are a big button-mashing free-for-all. Some are about hitting buttons with the right timing, and some are basically Simon Says. They're a fun distraction. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they were later repackaged in a Mario Party game. Now we move on to Gym Leader Castle, in which you battle the gym leaders and their minions. The Pokemon are scaled to match the same level as the strongest Pokemon in your party. You can have different teams for each gym, like in the Game Boy games, where you can edit your team depending on the gym. But for the most part, I just use the same team that I used for Prime Cup. First, I'll take on Brock. Notice he has no female trainers working in his gym. That's because he's on the Kanto region's register of sex offenders. Then we'll take out Misty, Little Miss I only gave him a bitch and a pity. Do I look like I need your pity? What is a pity is that your opponents don't have any dialogue before or after the battle. These are pretty popular characters. A bit of flavour text would have been a big help towards the immersion in the game. At the end, you face the Elite Four, and finally, the rival. As if he doesn't lose to you enough in the Game Boy games. When you've beaten him, you get a reward. A rare Pokemon. At times in the Game Boy games, you had to choose between several Pokemon. After you beat Gym Leader Castle, you can actually get one of those at random. Eevee, the starters, the fossils, and the Hitmon duo. This is a big help towards completing the Pokédex. Just as long as it doesn't keep giving you one Hitmonlee after another like it did with me for some reason. Maybe they all dropped out of the Arbuckle Dojo after Gym Leader Kreese threw one too many temper tantrums. Then, when all the tournaments in Gym Leader Castle are done, you have one more opponent to face. The almighty Mewtwo.
Yes, the most powerful trainer in Pokemon Stadium is also Gen 1's most powerful Pokemon.
It took a couple of tries, but I managed to pull it off by sending my own Mewtwo at him. It was a mirror match with both opponents kept spamming Psychic. This feels familiar for some reason. I kept spamming Psychic, which, while not doing very much damage, also lowered the other Mewtwo's special stat, which ultimately led to him taking more damage from my attacks and doing less damage in return. My Mewtwo succumbed to the onslaught, and then it was Starmie's turn, in which I reaped the fruits of my strategy. With Mewtwo's special stat lowered all the way down, his super effective Thunderbolt barely made a dent in Starmie, who finished him off with its own Thunderbolt.
Inconceivable!
And with that, we are rewarded with the credits roll. Then we unlock round 2, alias Hard Mode. That's right, a post-game for Gen 1's post-game. Everyone in round 2 is tougher with different party builds, so you have to get serious in raising your own Pokemon to battle them. Strategy is no longer optional if you want to do well in the tournaments. Which you should do, because once you're ready for Prime Cup, a new reward is available to you. So I trained a new Mewtwo running an Amnesia set so that it would take out most of the opponents in one hit. If you can beat Prime Cup Master Ball Division with a Pikachu in your team for every battle, you're given one of the best prizes in the game. The chance to teach it Surf! Not only is this an excellent coverage move for an electric-type Pokemon, making this Pikachu especially useful in Pika Cup and Petite Cup, but in Yellow version, it also lets you play the Surfing Pikachu minigame. I redid this a lot. In fact, I repeated Prime Cup so often that my Mewtwo basically became a swimming instructor. So you beat all of the tournaments and Gym Leader Castle again, and you're ready for the final boss. Mewtwo strikes back!
Human, you cannot escape your fate. I will show you the power of flawless IVs.
This promises to be the ultimate battle. Not only are round 2 Mewtwo stats completely off the charts, but it's also running the Amnesia moveset, making its already overpowered Stab Psychic able to destroy everything in one hit. it'll take the most powerful Pokemon and a well thought out strategy to overcome this masterpiece of bioengineering. Or just keep spamming Ice Beam until it freezes him. After that, he's basically just a sitting duck.
You are despicable.
Says the one who massacred all those scientists right after he was born. Those who live in glass tubes shouldn't throw stones. Well, that's it. I defeated the most powerful, most broken Pokemon of the first generation's metagame. And with that, my final score for Pokemon Stadium is a perfect 10 out of 10. I no longer own the original copy that I had back in the old days, so I recorded the footage of this video with a copy that I bought at the CEX shop. That's CEX, not sex! Get your brains out of a gutter, Brock!
I had just as much fun working my way through Pokemon Stadium as I did when I first played the game all those years ago, if not more so, now that there's documentation about the Gen 1 metagame, and I'm more familiar with the game's mechanics. Put simply, this is Pokemon Generation 1 at its finest. What a shame Stadium 2 is nowhere near as good.
You can store Pokemon from Red, Blue and Yellow, but not from Gold, Silver and Crystal. You're not allowed to store Pokemon from the Gen 2 games until you capture 150 Pokemon. Who came up with that? Who thought this was a good idea? Primecap is back, so I can reuse my team from the last game, but this time it's only one tier. Instead, they gave a 4-tier treatment to one of the worst, most frustrating tournaments, Challenge Cup, where you're forced into using random Pokemon, so you have to get lucky and hope that you get a decent team of Pokemon. Now, I wouldn't have minded if this was just a single tier contest, but no, it's 4 tiers, so I have to beat a tournament with random Pokemon 4 times in a row.
And what's the biggest complaint about the Switch Online port of Pokemon Stadium? Not being able to use your own Pokemon!
Let's take a break and look at the minigames. Now, to be fair, some of them are actually a lot more fun than those found in Pokemon Stadium 1. My favourite is Topsy Turvy, in which Hitmontops try to knock each other out of a ring. Gym Leader Castle returns, but now, beating the Elite Four at Gym Leader Castle no longer rewards you with a bonus Pokemon. There's also the Kanto Gym Leaders afterwards, but still no real reward, it's just more busy work. But I beat Gym Leader Castle in the end, so I'm almost finished with round 1. You can unlock the Doduo and Dodrio Game Boy again once you've beaten everything in round 1, but only for Red, Blue and Yellow, not for Gold, Silver and Crystal. Game Freak, don't you think you're being a bit juvenile? To play the Generation 2 games at double or quadruple speed, you have to beat Gym Leader Castle and all the Stadium tournaments in round 2. But first I have to battle the self-proclaimed rival, even though he's not somebody that I compete with. He's just some self-entitled little brat who keeps following me around and throwing childish temper tantrums whenever he loses a fight that he started in the first place. After showing off the legendary Pokemon that his rich mafia dad bought for him, I took him down once again.
Why? This should have been perfect! Why?
Well, how can I put this delicately? It's because you're a piss poor trainer and all of your Pokemon hate you.
After the pointless, unskippable Pokemon roll call before the closing credits, your reward for beating this deadbeat is a Farfetch'd with Baton Pass. So finally, you get an actual reward to using Gold and Silver. Round 2 is more of the same. Go through the tournaments again to unlock Doduo and Dodrio mode that you can actually use for the Gen 2 games. Challenge Cup took a few tries because of a randomness factor, but surprisingly, the biggest challenge was in Prime Cup's semi-finals. In Prime Cup, there's a skier called Caffey with an all-out attacking Snorlax, often considered the most powerful non-legendary in Gen 2's metagame, with leftovers to recover huge amounts of health. The fat bastard ate away all my continues. Now, when you lose, you have 2 choices as to how to deal with it. You can either be a toxic loser like Misty, throw a fit, blame your loss on everyone but yourself, and spend the next 20 years making up excuses, or you can be a valiant loser like Ash, put it down to experience and use it as a learning opportunity, leading him to become a better trainer and ultimately a better person. I did a little bit of both. I raised a Snorlax of my own and a new Mewtwo, both armed with Toxic, specifically to destroy that Snorlax. It worked wonders. After that, the final trainer in Prime Cup went down like a piece of toilet paper. and I finally unlocked Dojo mode for the Gen 2 games. So now I can play Gold, Silver and Crystal faster, right? Wrong, wrong, and wrong again. You can only use the Super Speed modes after you've beaten the Elite Four in your Game Boy Color game. Game Freak has exceeded juvenile and are now being outright babyish.
Why were Game Freak being so childish about this? I bought these games with my money, and it's my time that I invested in unlocking Dojo mode. I've earned the right to play the games my way. I shouldn't have to jump through any more hoops like this.
So anyway, all that's left is the Rivals Round 2 fight. I used my Prime Cup team, and once again I beat him. Quite easily, thanks to Mewtwo using Toxic.
What? What is it that I lack?
Skill, brains, talent, actual redeeming qualities.
This time, your reward for babysitting Little Rocket Jr. is a Gligar with Earthquake. That's not a bad reward. This is a powerful moveset for Gligar, but you can only get it once on your Stadium 2 save file. The only way to get another one is to erase the data on your Pokemon Stadium 2 cartridge and start again, from scratch. And since the batteries on Gold, Silver and Crystal die after a couple of years, you can potentially lose these rare Pokemon forever. So you'll want to put them into storage to keep them safe. Oh, wait! You're not allowed to store Pokemon from Gold and Silver until you meet even more of Game Freak's childish demands. You should be able to get another Earthquake Gligar if you beat the rival again, or at least make it one per trainer ID on your Game Boy cartridges. What if you share the game with siblings? How is it fair that only one of you can get the prize? Then again, I suppose that's a moot point, because do you know what the worst part of this is? Pokemon Stadium 2 randomly erased all my progress. Thankfully, the Pokemon in storage are still safe, but all the unlockable stuff is gone. All of that work to unlock Round 2 and play Gold and Silver at triple speed is just wasted. I don't know if it's because of a battery in the cartridge dying, or because of bad programming, or they did this deliberately, and frankly, I don't care anymore.
It's like spending an entire year rehearsing a two-person play, only to have your co-star just forget all of her lines and ruin everything you've been working towards. You know who you are.
So, you know what? Pokemon Stadium 2 gets a 4 out of 10. And not a good 4, like the Elite 4. More like the forgettable 4 Rocket Brothers at Sifco. Yes, battling is still fun, and I like that you get character dialogue before and after each match, but Stadium 2 is so openly hostile towards the very games it's supposed to be working in tandem with. You can't use the storage system properly until you've caught 150 Pokemon, you can't play at speed until you beat the Elite Four in-game, and you can't get any bonus Pokemon from Gin Leader Castle. And even when I did everything the game wanted me to do, it just randomly deleted my save data. I was going to give it a higher score, but deleting my save data, that was unforgivable.
It's as if Game Freak were deliberately trying to make Pokemon Stadium 2 as crappy as possible. It's so counterintuitive that you might as well just play the Gen 2 games on their own. But the first Pokemon Stadium was so rewarding. It works so well with the Generation 1 games, it's basically the Sonic 3 and Knuckles of Pokemon. I have so much fun revisiting this, but I'm basically a born-again Pokemaniac. You cushy up there, you!